Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Nicole Scott, and today we are joined by the lovely Katie Shesko today on Dungeon Runners. We're going to be talking all things Breath of the Wild, and when I say all things, I mean all things, because we're not just talking about any percent speedrun, we're talking 100%.
Oh yeah.
Um, yes. So, Katie, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, talking a little bit about your speedrun origin story, a little bit what you do on and offline as a part of the Zelda
Yeah,
community, we would love to hear it.
absolutely. So I'm Katie Shesko. I like to say that I'm a video game and anime cosplaying flute player who plays games fast. I think that pretty much
That's
sums up
awesome.
who I am. So essentially, like I said, I play flute and I do covers of video game and anime due to at conventions across the country. But it's all born out of my love for gaming and just this past, oh, I guess it's been almost 2 years that I just really started delving into the speedrunning aspect
Right.
because it's been something I've watched a lot of, GDQ. I've been watching that for many years. And the idea of speedrunning has always interested me, but I was just like, I'm too old. I'm a mom. I don't have time for this. And then I have to say, my friend Jason, he's just like, well, why don't you just do it your way? Like, you don't have to do it how everyone else does it. You can do it your way. And I was like, why did I never think of that? So, that's yeah. So I started speedrunning, and it hits that ADHD fix very well.
Now that totally makes sense. And I love that you just like do it your way. And then it really just tears down the barrier of like getting started because it can be very intimidating to start
Oh
with for sure.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of got started with bingos and stuff, and that kind of then snowballed into the speed running. But yeah, I you have these ideas of when you see these top runners, they're putting hours and hours, and like, if they fail a trick one time, they'll reset and start over. And you're not seeing the hours behind the scenes of all the practice, but
Oh, for
it's
sure.
there. And if you're just kind of getting into it, you're like, well, I'm never, at least for me, if I'm not going to be like really good at something, I tend to like don't want to do it. But yeah, having Jason be like, you don't have to try to be the fastest. Like, if you want to learn it, then learn it. And if you're slow, that's okay. Like, it's a learning process. And I was like, that makes so much sense. And more people need to know about this.
Yeah, no, it's a lot more of a compassionate approach for sure.
Yeah.
So you do Breath of the Wild 100%, and you also
Yes.
mentioned you were doing all Kilted medals. Have
Yes.
you ran any other Zelda games, or is this your first
This
foray?
is my first foray. I
What a
mean, I've done
massive
a little bit of,
undertaking.
yeah, I've done a little bit of Ocarina of Time, like randos. So it kind of like started there because I know Ocarina of Time players and I know Ocarina of Time
Mhm.
speedrunners. And then we started doing bingos. And then I saw that there was a Breath of the Wild bingo. And I was like, I like Breath of the Wild way more than Ocarina of Time. I'm going to start doing that. And then it kind of, I, I like watching any percents, but like when I play games even casually, I tend to 100% everything. I want to do everything that the game has to offer. So I was never really interested in the shorter categories. I want something that has a little bit more content to it
Yeah.
because I don't know, that's just what I like to do. So why not go the longest category?
Well, I was just like thinking like what an incredible way to like start your speedrun journey by picking like the biggest category. Probably I might just be saying this without having research, but it's probably one of, if not the longest categories in Zelda speedrunning history. Maybe up there with
Yeah.
like Tears of the Kingdom 100%, though I don't know the world record off the top of my head. But
Yeah, I don't
um,
know the tiers 100, but I know that's been
yeah,
like hotly contested as to what 100% is for tiers. I've seen the official rules. I don't think it's 100%. That's my
that's your hot take.
that's my hot take. That it doesn't I don't think it actually is 100%, but that's me and that can be debatable.
Well, then, for people who don't know what Breath of the Wild 100% constitutes, would you be willing to summarize that for us?
Yeah, so Breath of the Wild is for 100%, you of course get 900 Koroks. That's what my most asked question, do you actually have
Woo!
to get all the Koroks? Yes,
Of
yes you
course.
do. So you have to get all 900 Koroks. You have to do all of the quests, all of the side quests, and there's which then you get the Kilton medals. You have to get the Kilton medals as well. and there's specific armor that you have to get and upgrade. So anything that's
Okay.
permanent. So like the Zora armor needs upgraded. Um, oh, it's been a hot second, but there's like three different armor sets that you have to get and upgrade,
Mm.
and those are the ones that you have to get. Again, I don't know if that's 100, technically 100%, but that's what the official rules are. So
Yeah.
anything that is a permanent armor, that's what you have to upgrade.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is so weird because obviously there's like the map completion, but it doesn't
Yes.
include things like side quests or
Yes.
any of the armor sets. So things that
Right.
players would traditionally probably deem as 100%
Yeah.
isn't in
So,
the actual game embedded, but it could be
right.
in the speedrun rules.
Right. And the 100% does include 100% map. So that includes like all the
Mm.
locations and stuff, which you, there's a couple that you have to get that are not related to anything else that you pick up. So you have to go your way to get them. But the map percent at being at 100 is that. And that usually it's
Yeah.
the locations that trip you up.
Oh yeah, especially like whenever I was doing my own 100% run, I had to look at a map. Like
Oh,
even
yeah.
some of the Koroks aren't even in line with some of these map areas, and I'm like, why?
Yeah. Yeah. So the interactive map for Breath of the Wild, godsend. I've utilized that so
Okay.
much. Though I think IST Piston put together the routes, and I might be wrong on that, so I'd have to
Mm.
double check that with Jason. But they have what's called a seller, which like as you put the route in, it has the lines as where to go and where you need to go, and it's all yeah. The amount of work that people have put into just tracking everything, knowing where things are, what's in what chest where, all of that, the community behind it, just it's a labor of love because that just takes so much time to program all
Oh
of
yeah, for
that.
sure. And I was curious actually like what your actual practice sessions looked like because for I believe the world record is around 15 hours.
Yes.
For a run that long, there's no way that each practice run starts from the top. So you have
No.
to practice in like several hour chunks. So like what do your
Yes.
practice sessions look like and do you have that route always like mapped out in front of you or do you actually eventually, heaven forbid, like memorize every single Korok location without
I
the need
do
of a
not.
guide?
I don't think anyone would have that 100% memorized. I the person who does, I don't know if I want to meet them because that's a level of I don't know, but
It's
most
knowledge, man.
the amount of knowledge, I don't know. Jason might be pretty close, but I still think he has a route just because, like, if you miss one thing and you don't know where it's at, going back and trying to find that one Korok that you missed is I've had to do it. It's not fun.
Mm-mm.
So you more or less use the route like as a checklist of like, okay, you know, at this point I should have this many Koroks and this many shrines and this map percentage. And if you're not there, then you can kind of say, okay, well, at some point between this point and this point, I missed it. Um, for me, the practice sessions were just really going through the route, just segment by segment, do it in like 3 or 4 hour chunks. If there was a particular segment that I felt a little rusty on, like there's a couple of spots like in Hebra before you get the tower where like going from one Korok to another is a little bit, it's easy to get lost. So I might go back and do those specific things, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just really little by little and just kind of doing it over and over because by the time you get to the end, you go back up to the beginning and you're like, okay, I haven't done that for a while. But I'm taking a slightly different approach with all Kilton medals now,
And what does
where I'm
that look
going to.
like?
So I've just been kind of running it and figuring out where am I having trouble. So like I was really struggling with like defeating Ganon. Ganon, you got to do within like the first, for me, like the first 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And my runs kept dying because of the glitches, which we could talk about the glitches later.
Absolutely.
If you lose a shield, like you've broken the glitch, you can't really recover. You have to restart. So I was just like, okay, how do I get better at Ganon? So I learned a couple of tips and tricks to speed that process up.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got really good at that. And now it's just like, okay, the this particular segment where essentially the ground is lava. You can't touch the ground. You have to I'm going to kind of start working on just that segment of maneuvering that because that's where I'm losing time. So it's just I'm
Right.
gonna kind of start working on particular segments because like I feel like at this point for me running the route over and over isn't helpful. I know the general route, but now it's just like okay, I'm losing time because I'm failing wind bombs or
Mm.
I am not getting this clip consistently. So it's those are where I'm losing the most time. So that's where I want to focus that because now I know how the route works. I know generally where things are. So it's just like, okay, where am I losing the most time? Would it be helpful to learn another trick here or things like that? But with 100%, it was just like, I'm just trying to get familiar with it. So I was just running it over and over. But
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I mean, I think there's about 52 people that have submitted a run for the 100% category. And
yeah,
like I said, like I think the world record is like 15 hours and the 52nd place is like over 2 days. So there's
yes,
definitely like a wide range of time there. So like for
yeah,
you, what would be like a submittable run time? Are you looking like you'd mentioned that you were doing this more casually to fit
right.
more with your lifestyle, and that's just like so
Yeah,
awesome. I don't think a lot of people talk about casual speed running enough. So like
no.
what for you would be like a good submittable run for someone like you?
I think for me, I'd like to get it around 30 to 35. If I can get two or three runs between 30 and 35,
Hmm.
then I'll set aside a weekend to do it. Because with
Yeah.
the current rule set, which there's a lot of hot debate about that with the breaks, um, I would need to set aside an entire weekend to do it,
Oh, I'm
which
sure.
is
Like, how does that even work? So, like, you have to. There's got to be time, maybe even to sleep, or how does that work?
I think I would have to pull it up because I do not remember off the top of my head.
Fair.
But it's just like you can do 4 to 4.5 hours and then you can take a short break and then do another 4 to 4.5 hours. And then you can take an 8 hour break for sleeping. So
Oh, wow.
essentially, you have to do like 16 hours in one day. It might be different because I know, well, with the world record being like 15 and a half hours, it's usually done over two segments, I think.
Hmm.
But I think some of the top runners will do that all in one day.
Impressive.
But once you get past 20 hours, you get like another pool of breaks in there. So for me to do it over 30 hours, I would definitely have to do it over 2 days. And so I would have to set aside an entire weekend. So once I get that consistently there, I think last I ran it was at 38 hours.
That's
Then
still
I'll,
good.
yeah, my biggest problem is my movement is my wind bombs are not as consistent as I would like them to be. And when for 100% you're doing literally thousands of wind bombs, if you're
Right.
losing 30 to 45 seconds on each wind bomb that you fail, that adds up really fast. So
Oh, I'm
that's kind
sure.
of why I shifted to the all Kilton medals because one, it's a shorter route, but my biggest problem being consistent wind bombs and consistent midair wind bombs, all Kilton medals is pretty much wind bombs and midairs. That's really all it is. So it was allowing me to see kind of like shorter wins. I'm not breaking a 40-hour run over 3 weeks. I can get a run done in one day or
Yeah.
over 2 days if I decide to reset or whatnot. But so I'm seeing those faster wins, so it's a little bit better mentally, but I'm still practicing the things that I need to practice on, which is like the movement tech and getting that more consistent.
Yeah, that
So,
was actually like smart to go that route because it is a way to continue practicing like the end goal, but it's an easier way to potentially
yep.
like for people who want to maybe venture into the 100% route,
Yeah.
maybe start with something like all Kilton medals because it's still part of the run, but you
Yes.
like you said it is that shorter, quicker win.
Yes. Thank you, Dotso. Dotso was the one that suggested it. The two biggest people that have helped me has been 31 NPR, Jason, and Dotso. Dotso, I know from the OT community. Dotso's just good at everything, and I love him and hate him for it. But Jason is more of a casual speedrunner.
Yeah.
He kind of runs his own version of 100% of what he calls like no movement glitches. So he does like the big inventory glitches
Hmm.
because he finds that really interesting, but he doesn't care about learning how to do a wind bomb. He doesn't care about BLSS. So it's kind of a step between the regular route and a more casual no glitch route. So he won't clip through shrines and stuff like that. So he was really the one that's like, why don't you do it on your terms? He's like, I'll give you my route, but I know you like to do wind bombs and I know you like to do BLSS. So like we can modify my route to suit your needs.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I did that for a while, then I kind of moved to the more normal route, but I still took in some of what Jason's route had to better suit what I'm capable of and what I want to focus on. So like if I don't want to do a specific routing because it's really tricky, like you need very precise movement and stuff, I tweak it a little bit and figure out, okay, well, what does Jason do here, and put that in. And Dotso, like I said, he has run the 100% and all Kilton medals. But he used more of the regular route because he likes to learn the glitches and all of that. So it's been really nice to have both of them help me through this journey. Because Jason's really the encouraging one. He's the one that started me in it. And Dotso's just like, okay, I know how you play. I know kind of like how you learn. So like, here's the next thing that I suggest you learn. And here's how we can tweak it. And they both would help me change the route for my own style. Like Dotso, before Cellar was updated, would like go in. I'd be like, hey, I want to move this stuff around. He would do it and update the route for me, which was really, really nice. So, but
That
yeah, that
is
was
so
also a
awesome.
suggestion. Just like do something a little bit shorter, but it's still practicing what your ultimate goal is.
Yeah, and it's cool to have that freedom to still enjoy the hobby, but you're
Yeah.
not doing the world record grind, which can be so debilitating at times.
Yes, absolutely. I have other things going on. I can't
Sure.
sit and play Zelda as much as I would love to sit and play Zelda for 16, 17 hours a day. That's
Absolutely.
just not my reality. So but it's really hard as someone who's an overachiever and likes to do all the things and likes to be the best at all of the things. Um, that kind of mentality is hard and can prevent you from actually starting something. Like I spent so long not speedrunning a game that I really like because I was just like, well, I don't have the time to be a top runner.
Right.
And it's like, well, you don't have to be a top runner. Just like what's what's your goal? Like my goal for Hundo is 30 to 35. My goal for all Kelton medals is like probably three to three and a half. And how can I meet that goal? And if it takes me a year to do that, so what? Am I having fun? Usually. I mean, we all have those moments of like you practice something and then you try it and it fails and then you get frustrated. But I mean, like, I think that's part of the process. But like, am I overall having fun? Do I enjoy doing this? I do. So that's why I do it.
Well, especially since I think you hinted that you already are a completionist with other video games that you play, so this
Yeah,
checks
we're
out.
not. Yeah, we're not going to talk about the number of times I've completed Nier Automata or any of the other Zelda games
Sure.
or the Xenoblade games where, I we can that's a whole different discussion. But yeah, when I play a game, I tend to 100% it. Either that or I play like 10 hours and then I never pick it up again. There's no in between.
I feel you. That is exactly my play style as well.
I either do all of the things or I play a very small subset and say, I'll get to it later and then just never go back.
Yeah, it's either you're taking a taste or like eating the entire buffet. That's just how I
Yes.
feel about video games.
That's me.
Um, so yeah, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the specific glitches. So you'd mentioned
Oh my
the
gosh.
inventory manipulation is like a huge thing. You mentioned some movement
Yes.
glitches like BLSS, wind bombs, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
what do you think is probably the most complicated glitch in Hundo?
Oh, IST for sure. IST and WMC. And that is the glitch where you were really messing with the inventory and the memory. Hundo is way more complicated than all Kelton metals just because
Yeah.
of what you want
Mhm.
from the inventory glitch. Um, so yeah, essentially you're corrupting the inventory to give yourself a super powerful bow that doesn't break easily, to give yourself like 5,000 ancient arrows so that you can one shot everything that you need to give yourself like 3,000, 4,000 bomb arrows for different things.
Sure,
It
I get
gives
those in my
you,
regular playthrough.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
999 fairies so you can't die,
Yeah, I love
and
that.
you glitch the for hundo, you glitch the speed food. So you make a speed food, the 3 tier that lasts 30 minutes, and you glitch that. So essentially you get infinite speed food so that you can,
Go fast.
move fast. With all Kelton metals, that's not quite as important. You glitch a stamina food so that you have essentially infinite stamina. Because that's way more important for all Kelton metals. So
Oh, it's interesting. I thought it would be like, yeah, well, I imagine that's combined with whistle sprinting.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, you do a little bit of whistle sprinting, but if
Yeah.
you're really good AKM, like you're doing mostly wind bombs and mid airs, little bit of BLSS, but that doesn't consume stamina, so that's not
Right.
as big of a deal. But yeah, so for all Kelton metals, because you're spending most of your time doing wind bombs, you want the infinite stamina. Whereas with Hundo, you're going to be doing a lot more running around, so having the speed food is way more important. Now, you could glitch speed food into any of it, but you're going to have to change the you're going to have to change the IST doc and figure it out, and people will help you do that, but like, you know, you just got to get good or run slow. Right now I run slow. It's not I want to get to the point where like having the speed food wouldn't be an issue. So right now I just run slow and deal. But I mean,
Take
you
your
have that
time.
infinite stamina. So as soon as you run out of stamina, you can just quickly eat another one and go. So
Yeah, so is the inventory the memory corruption there? Is that a run ending glitch? Like if you don't do
for
it right.
Hundo, yes.
Oof.
Be oh, oh.
How far into the run
So
is it?
huh? Well, with the new route, as I say new, this is like a year old now, but with the newest route, you start it like you have to start the setup like on plateau,
Hmm.
and you have to rely on that hard save. So you cannot hard save at all because you are relying on that hard save on plateau that has very specific things in the inventory up until that point, that you then kind of you go back and forth between loading and reloading,
Hmm.
and that's how you kind of corrupt the memory, because you're messing with the fact that like later in the run you have things on your key inventory page like the paraglider and orbs, and you're going back to the point where there is nothing in that key inventory page. It's very complicated. I'm sure there's a video. I Jason has explained it to me, Dotso has explained it to me, and I'm still sometimes like I don't understand entirely. You're kind of messing with what's in the inventory, and you're corrupting it by going back in time, not back in time because that's a whole different thing with Skyward Sword, but like
Absolutely.
you're going back to a different inventory point when you're kind of constantly reloading and saving and stuff like that. So with Hundo, you got to start it at the beginning. You play for a little bit, you do part of it at I think Hatno, and then you go from there to Rito Village because you start doing Meadow, and you do a little bit more there, and if you mess it up, run dead. Because especially in one part, it's easy to crash the game if you're not
Yeah.
careful. And if the game crashes, then you're kind of undoing some of the inventory breaking that you've done. And because you're relying on that save state from the very beginning, it crashes, you're done. So you get through that, then you do all of Meadow, and then you got to do a little bit more before you're out of the clear. So for me, that's about 4 hours in, if all. Now, top runners, I think they do that in about 2.5. So it's not quite as devastating, but still 2.5 hours in into even a 15-hour run. That's still a decent chunk of time that like things can go wrong if you're not careful, because you have to do very precise inputs to break the game in this way. Whereas compared to all kiln metals, you do some of that inventory manipulation, but you're relying on an autosave from right before you start doing the inventory manipulation. So if
Oh,
you
that's so much better.
it's so much better. It's really nice, and I've relied on that a couple of times where like if something doesn't go right, or there's been backups that have been found, but there are certain places where like if things just don't go right, you close the game, reload that autosave after you turn in your orbs, and it's a clean slate. You can start again, which is a lot more forgiving. And that's about half hour, 45 minutes into the run. So there have been times where like I something went really weird. Like I had a shield, the shield just disappeared. I don't know where the shield went. So I had to start the run over, and that was like an hour and a half in. It's a little bit of a time loss, but
Yeah.
like it's not quite as devastating. You're like, okay, well, I guess I'm just getting more practice with plateau getting up to this point. But so yeah, the IST for all elementals is a lot more forgiving, because if you mess it up, if something goes wrong, if you drop something you weren't supposed to, you got to start the process over, but you're not losing 2.5 hours worth of work. Whereas something goes wrong in Hundo, you gotta start all over from the beginning, because you're relying on a very specific save, and you have to manipulate your clock in order to keep a certain save, and it's stressful. That's the most stressful part. But after that part, it's not like you're like, okay, once you get past all of that, then I mean, you still have to do like 80% of the game. But once you get
Right.
past that part, you're like, if something goes horribly wrong, like you just reload and try again. So stressful. But
No, that's that's really insightful for like how much people like need to invest in this category, but it's just in the first couple of hours.
yeah.
Like how crucial that is. And I mean, hey, at least the game ending glitches early on,
Yeah.
all things considered. Um, but you had mentioned like a couple times that you have the support system in the community that's been like helping you
Yeah.
sort of like overcome these like mental blocks that you've had about some aspects of
Yeah.
speedrunning. So is that primarily what keeps you motivated to, keep
Definitely.
practicing over and over again?
Definitely.
Yeah,
I'm also very motivated. We're like, and I don't think about this for anyone else. I'm gonna preface this with, this is my very probably slightly toxic view, but I don't want to consider myself a speedrunner until I have a run on the board.
that's fair.
I do not think any that if anyone else wants to call themselves a speedrunner without a run on the board, I don't think anything less. But for me, I want to have a run on the board. So like having that be my like main motivation has been really helpful. But there have been times where I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm frustrated because I'm not seeing the progress that I want to see, even though it makes sense. Like, if I have to take a week off because I'm preparing for a convention and I don't touch the game for a week, and you backside a little bit, like it's really frustrating. But just having the community there that's like, no, you can do it, like you want to do this, and like, what's the next thing that we can help you with, or like just even just being there on stream chatting and being like, it's okay, you've got this, like just
Yeah.
having that support is just like that little push that's like, okay, this is why I'm doing it. And people want to see me succeed, and I want to succeed. So yeah, I think for me, I sometimes need that outside validation of
Oh
like,
yeah, for sure.
you've got this. You can do it. I know it's frustrating right now. I feel like a small child. Where it's just like I just sometimes like need that extra push, because like it'd be really easy to be like, I'm never gonna be a top speedrunner. So like why am I putting myself through all of this stress and heartache, and I can just go play a different game instead. But like I have a goal, and and just having the people behind me who are there to help as well. Like I don't want to let them down, because they've invested time into me.
Mhm.
And obviously if I decided not to do it, they wouldn't ultimately care, but it's
Mhm.
just like they invested their time into me because they think I can do it too. So I don't want to let them down as well.
That's
So,
really sweet, honestly. I think that's what's really cool about the speedrun community is that it is so expansive that people
yeah.
can just like so easily like one message in a Twitch chat can mean the world of difference between you persevering and not.
Yeah.
But what so your experience with the Breath of the Wild speedrunning community, do you think that it has the potential to be like as long lasting as some like Ocarina of Time speedruns, even with Tears of the Kingdom, because people have picked up on that, because
Yeah,
of the novelty of it. But Breath of the Wild seems like it could become one of like the top Zelda speedruns in the future.
I think it could because I'm starting to see people who had taken a break from Breath of the Wild to do Tears stuff, to do Tears content, speedruns, or different challenges and stuff. I'm starting to see them slowly trickle back to Breath of the Wild.
I wonder why.
So, um, which is great for me because
Yeah.
I like see, not that I don't like Tears, but like there's a reason I speedrun Breath of the Wild. There's
Hmm.
like, I think it's one of the most like speedrunning friendly Zelda games
Interesting.
because you don't have to do glitches. Especially with like the bingo community. I'm trying to get more people to do bingos with me because
They're so
I
fun,
love
right?
doing bingos. They're so fun. But like when I started doing bingo, I didn't know a bingo file existed. So I was doing plateau every single time. Don't need
Oh
to do
no.
that. But like when I was first starting to do bingos, I didn't know how to do like I don't even know if wind bombs were a thing at that point. They might have just started like trickling out, but like I was still going everywhere on a horse and running and like it,
What a
because you
time to be
don't,
alive.
what a time to be alive when doing bingos on a horse. And like I still have some people in the community that will do bingos and like not
Hmm.
they don't care about the speed running tech. So like they're a little bit slower, but like we tend to
Yeah.
play co-op. So like they pick the goals that they want to do, and if they only do a couple, that's fine because it's about playing together. It's about playing a solo game in a community setting, but it's very friendly like that because like you don't have to do glitches in order to do it. Like,
Yeah.
will it be slower? Yeah. Will you have to pick up extra items? Yeah, but like if you don't want to do glitches, it's fine. You can still do it. And I think that's what really appealed to me because like I don't do Ocarina of Time bingos because like I don't know how to do Dora Time skip. I don't know how to Hess. I could do basement skip in Deku Tree.
Hey, that's not
I have
nothing.
I've got that one trick that I can do. But like clipping past the Song of Time block and Forest, I'm still not consistent at. But like in order to do bingos, you kind of have to know how to do some of those tricks.
Hmm.
And like I like Ocarina of Time, but I don't like it that much to invest time to doing that.
Yeah.
I'll do multi-world where like someone else can go do the complicated stuff and I can do the easy stuff. But with Breath of the Wild, because it's open world, you don't need to learn any glitches if you don't want to. And like I said, I'm learning specific glitches and tricks as I go, as I feel a need to learn them. So like for a while, I was getting tower first, so that once you get the tower, you then that opens up going to the shrines. I've learned how to clip into bombs. So I do bombs first and then I go to the
Mm.
tower because I want the tower for other places for my backup purposes, at least in all Kilton medals. You have to get the tower for 100% because that sets everything in motion.
Right.
But like you could still do the bombs first and then get tower. But like I was having trouble getting that clip consistent. So I learned how to clip into the Temple of Time, which then makes a more consistent skew to clip into bombs. So it's just kind of like, okay, I'm now stuck here. Now I'm going to sit and learn. I was struggling with Ganon, so I learned how to do skew bounce so that for all Kilton medals, I can more easily kill Ganon. Not an issue when you do 100% because you have all the Divine Beasts, you have all the champion ability, so that makes defeating Ganon in like 2 seconds really easy. But like in all Kelton medals, you don't have some of that stuff. So it's like I didn't need to learn it, and now I did because I was losing runs to that point. So I've picked up things as I felt the need of like, okay, this is where I can now save time. But like you don't have to do that,
Right.
which is great.
Yeah, I mean, with learning all of the, I mean, 100% encompasses a lot of the glitches
Yes.
um, in the game. So, do you think that you'll apply that eventually to do other categories?
Maybe. I was for a while, and for a while, I mean, like for a couple weeks, probably a year and a half ago, was interested in learning best ending, which is all of the memories.
Oh, that's
But
sweet.
yeah, it's a really cute. You got to get all the memories, and I think you also have to defeat Ganon. But like, I was trying to learn it from the top, and I was trying to do what the I say official, but it's not official, but like what the top runners routes are, which includes clipping. And I at the time like could not consistently clip, and I was just getting so frustrated that I ended up putting it away. Now that I realize that, hey, you can change the route, like nothing's stopping you from changing the route to make it easier for whatever you want to do.
Hmm.
um Now that I'm a little bit more comfortable and know that like I can change aspects that are too difficult for me right now, or I'm just not interested in putting the time to learn specific things, I might go into some of the other categories. Dog percent is always interesting because
That
like who
kills
doesn't
me.
want
It's
to go.
so funny.
I love it. Like I want to do stuff like that, or something like all main quest, something again
Hmm.
where you're doing a little bit more content. You'll probably never see me run any percent. I have no interest in it. Don't want to do it. Probably won't do it, but I'll do something like all main quests or like dog percent or like best ending with all the memories because like you're getting more into the meat of it. Obviously, all Kilton medals. Definitely want to get 100%, and then once I get 100%, maybe do 100% EX with all of the DLC. So,
Oh wow, the DLC. Oh
oh,
no.
I was doing that one for a while, and oh, Trial of the Sword. That's when I was like, okay, we're learning Trial of the Sword skip because oh, you could just spend like an hour and a half to 2 hours just doing Trial of the Sword if you're doing it normally. And I mean, I like it, but if you're trying to speedrun, like, no. I was like, that's that. We're learning the clips now.
I would just
We're
call that
learning the
time
skips.
loss and
Yeah,
move on.
yeah. But I've uninstalled the DLC. I'm gonna do base hundo first and then move on to because it's the same thing, but you're just adding
Yeah.
extra content at that point. So
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Um, but you'd mentioned obviously you go to cons, you
yes,
play music there. Have you been
yes.
able to introduce any of the people that attend your shows to the idea of speedrunning?
A little bit, especially once I've started introducing myself as a flute player who plays games fast,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are like, what does that mean? I'm like, oh, I speed run. So I'm starting to get more people interested in that, and I'm just trying to get people to come do bingos. Like that's really what I want to do. I just want people to come play bingo with me because bingo is so much fun.
Hey everybody,
Um,
this is your cue.
this is
Go
my
play
this is
bingo.
my plug to come do Breath of the Wild bingos. Um, there used to be tournaments before Tears came out where those were a little bit more competitive, but I tend to do like casual co-ops where we just all sit on a Discord call and play Breath of the Wild together. It's really fun and cozy. But yeah, I'm starting to introduce that to people.
Mhm.
Because like I'm bridging my two loves. I'm bridging my love of gaming and wanting to do all the things in the games with my love of music. I mean, that's obviously why I do video game and anime music because I like that music way better than
Yeah.
classical. So I like trying to bridge those things together because I don't know if it's my ADHD or whatever, but like I don't like doing just one thing. I'm a lot more dynamic of a person than that. And I think we all are, but
Yeah.
sometimes when you're a content creator, you feel compelled to like do only one thing
Stay
because
in your
then the
niche.
algorithm yeah,
Yeah.
do your niche only because that's how you're going to grow. And I'm just like, but that's boring. Why can't I do both things? Like why
Right.
can't I speed run games and do music? So that's kind of why I want to do the music and maybe start doing panels on bingo. I really want to do a bingo panel and have people bring their Switch and set up a bingo file during the panel.
That would be such a creative idea. I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
seen that at a con before.
No. So I just need to get my act together. Now that I'm like done with conventions for the year and I had my week break where I played way too much Genshin Impact, um, I'm probably gonna start putting together like kind of those panel ideas because like people don't know what bingos are or they kind of only know OOT bingos because like that's where the bulk of like the Zelda bingo is OOT
Hmm.
because the OOT community with their bingos are very dedicated where
Oh
like
yeah, for
every
sure.
so often they're like redoing times and making sure that like because they're really big on you choose a row and that's what you do.
Hmm.
So they're always like, how do we balance the rows so that like most of the rows are going to take in theory, approximately the same time? And like, if we're going to add a new goal, how does that affect everything? Breath of the Wild, we're just kind of like, what sounds like fun goals? And about how long does it take? And I think they're like, of course, they did a whole bunch of timings, and then BLSS was discovered, and that broke a bunch of the timings. But theirs is Breath of the Wild is more on a rank system where, like, does this take a lot of time, and is this hard to do? And then that'll put it on a slightly longer board.
Mm.
It's because at least with Breath of the Wild, they have a short, a normal, and a long. And a long board is going to have a lot more of those bigger goals where you're going to have to do multiple Divine Beasts, which in Bingo, you're squishy, so that can be difficult. Whereas, like, on a short board, you might have something like Game Over from Kuko's. Not
A
hard to do.
classic.
A classic. I mean, it's probably one of my favorite goals. But, you know, yeah. But a lot of people only think of OOT bingos. And I'm just like, no, like, if you're interested in doing bingos, like, Breath of the Wild's a great game because you don't have to learn glitches. You set up your bingo file once, and then you're done and you're ready to play bingo anytime, which is fantastic. So, I definitely want to start introducing that because I think it brings a fresh new perspective to Breath of the Wild. I always say I learned way more about the game doing bingos than I did casually because I was going to different places in a way that I wouldn't have done casually. I'm doing things in a different order than I wouldn't do casually. I have to get more creative because, I might go to a Divine Beast like fully loaded with a bunch of stamina and hearts and stuff. And I learned more about the game. I learned about like what requirements unlock things looking at you, dragons and Impa. I'm still.
Oh no.
Me and my friend did a bingo, and we waited 45 minutes waiting for dragons to spawn. That's when we learned you have to talk to Impa for dragons to spawn.
PSA,
And that's
everybody.
not something that you would ever know because most people go to Impa pretty early
Yeah.
before they even think about doing the dragon. So it's one of those like triggers that like I would have never realized was a trigger except through bingo because I
Yeah.
did things in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise casually. So,
Yeah, if speedrunners are good at anything, it's finding event flags
yes.
and
And there
discovering
wasn't a
what's
whole lot
actually
of
essential.
yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of information at the time about some of that stuff. And then as things got built out and as people were doing more things, then you'd start to see. But like, yeah, so I learned a lot about the game, and it's an interesting way of playing it, and it keeps the game fresh because like there was a reason I kept doing. Breath of the Wild casually 100% over and over just because I just love existing in that world. I love
Yeah.
playing in that world. And like this allows it to like I got into it because my reviewers were tired of me collecting Koroks. This was pre-speed running. They're like, well, do you really have to keep collecting Koroks? I was like, but I like, this is fun. I'm having fun running around. So that's
Hmm.
how I found bingos. And I was just like, okay, so now I can do extra things. And it's different every time. We're doing
Yeah.
things in different orders. So it keeps it fun and fresh, but like I still get to like run around in a world that makes me happy.
Well, and again, that just goes back to like why it matters so much to participate in the hobby, even if you're not going for world record, even if you're doing it
Yeah.
casually, because you just love existing in this space. And speedrunning, bingos, streaming, all this stuff, it just gives you another way to experience that world in a fresh take again. So
Yeah.
it'll never get stale. It'll
No,
never get stale.
never.
Um, but do you think that like with you playing flute, now this is something I'm just mostly curious about. Um, do you find that the mentality of like, because obviously you have to practice really hard to be a good musician,
Yeah.
do you think that mentality has like influenced or maybe even aided in your ability to practice speedrunning?
Yeah, I think I've taken a lot of like how I approach practicing music into how I approach practicing speedrunning. And that, like, at least for me, I'm the type of person, and I don't know if it's because of like, my autoimmune issues with causing memory stuff and like just now within the past couple of months learning that like I have ADHD and that affects how I retain and learn information. But if I don't do something consistently a little bit every day, if I go a week without doing it, it's like I've never done it before. And that was a big frustration for me in music. And I've learned that's the same for me in speed running. So like even if I just pick it up for 20 minutes and just
Hmm.
okay, today I'm just going to practice like wind bombs for like 20 minutes. Just keeping those skills like at the top of my brain of like okay, especially cuz I learned wind bombs when it was first discovered and now there's a lot more information about how it works. So I kind of developed bad habits. So like all learning those timing things to be more consistent and more of what I need for specific situations. So yeah, it definitely has taught like it yeah, the skills transfer over because it's like any skill, whether it's music or art or anything that you want to learn. I always say you're better off if you do 15 to 20 minutes every day as opposed to sitting down for 3 hours once a week.
Hmm.
And I think that's true for anything. And it's what I found works for me with music. It's the same for speedrunning. If I pick it up a little bit every day, I see that progress a little bit more. And yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely skills
Yeah, no,
transfer.
that totally makes sense. Because I know that when I practice speed runs, I do it in massive chunks, and then I'll go like 2 weeks without touching it. And I'm like, wait a second, now I have to relearn this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer. But like, it's funny how you were talking about wind bombs and how you like were there when it was first coming out, and then you like learned those bad habits, and then you just had to relearn them
Yep.
again whenever people because this stuff is developing all the time.
Oh yeah.
So it's really fun to be a part of like the creation process. And you're like, oh, there's this new glitch. I'm gonna have to learn it now. And then a year, even 2 years down the line, these speedrun communities are just insane. They're
Yeah.
always optimizing.
Exactly.
So that,
Like
that that's just like one of my favorite things.
like
So cool
I
to hear.
love it so much, especially because like I have a degree in industrial engineering. I did not go to music school. I went to engineering school.
What a plot
I've
twist.
yeah, I've lived several lifetimes in my 36 years, but with industrial engineering, it's all about like the continuous improvement, like getting things a little bit better and working with the people that are in the trenches about how to improve processes, how can we make this easier
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And like, the whole routing, how can I optimally get everything in this area, and would it make more sense to do something else and then come back when I have more things that I need? So like that whole thing just like sparks my engineering brain. So like I love it, and I wish I had more time to glitch hunt, but I just don't. But it's fun to see like the threads and like the processes, and things are still being found so many years later. Like the BLSS, was found I think last year, which was 6 years after the game has been released. And like the same with all of the inventory stuff. I think that's only like 2 years old. So like some of the stuff has just been like slowly come about as people spent more time in the game. They've, you know, went into the code and like really studied it. And then, you know, you start with one thing, like even the IST has evolved like how what do you want for your particular category. And because like I said, the IST for 100% is very different from the IST for all count metals, and I'm sure is very different for any of the other slightly longer categories. It just depends on what do you want in your run. What do you need? What would make your run easy? Excuse me. So I think, yeah, it's so fun to see it evolve, and it just the iterations. And sometimes you break something on accident, you're like, oh, how can I do that again, and is that helpful? And yeah, it fires so many things that I'm interested in. And I think that's why I keep coming back to it. Because, like, there is the optimization, there is the routing. It's the, okay, well, I don't want to do this. So, how can I better optimize the route for what I want to do and how I want to do it? I mean, that's what Jason has done, because he's like, I don't want to do wind bombs, but I really like breaking the inventory. This is fun for me, and I
Yeah.
want to learn how this works. And he can tell you with extreme detail. And I've always found a way to break it, especially with Hundo, because there's so many steps. And I'll accidentally pick something up, or I'll accidentally reload something. And it was always fun, at least for him, to be like, okay, how do we fix this? Can this be fixed? Now, obviously, if you're doing a run, you break it, you're just restarting. But like, I was more interested in like just getting to the point where I can get to the rest of the run. So it was always fun to be like, okay, can this be fixed? Do I know enough about how the code and how all of this is being executed on the memory to fix it? And what do we need to do? And yeah, I was always like, if you want to break something, come have me do it because I will find a way to break it and I'll get you thinking about can this be fixed? And maybe you'll learn, you know, they've learned a little bit more about how it works because of stuff like that, which is just it's fun. I feel like I'm helping in that way, even though it's just me breaking things because I skipped a line in the step process.
No, I've been saying for years that it makes so much sense for even like game developers or prospective game makers
Yeah.
to pay attention to speedrunners because they are finding the oversights, they're finding the lines in the
Yep.
code that are breaking the game. Like maybe you should be paying attention to what these people are doing.
Oh yeah.
You could
And
learn
they look
something.
exactly, they look for that specifically. Like I don't even remember how like skew was found, but it's just like, yeah, if you know, have Link shield surf at a very specific angle and then you unequip your shield, then Link does this like weird janky motion and then you can clip through walls. Like how do you find that? And
Yeah.
like then it's just like, well, how do we make this work for things that we want? And like yeah, it's just it's wild and it's fun and it's interesting. And even if you never want to do it yourself, just like watching the progression is just it's so fascinating.
Yeah, no, for real. I find it so funny that you have this like perspective of like, yeah, I'm a musician and I have this like ability to like repeatedly practice a thing even when it's frustrating. But then you also have this perspective of like, I have an engineering background, so like obviously like that provides like a whole other
Yeah,
like framework to your spirit. I just think that's so cool.
yeah. Like I said, I don't think I could ever just be a musician or just be a speedrunner.
Yeah.
Like I it I'm a whole person and I think everyone's like that, but like you see some of the people like that are at the top of their game and that's all that they do and then
Yeah.
at least for me like I said I felt like well I can't be a speedrunner because I'm not dedicating my life to it. I'm not trying to be world record. And so why even bother? But like that's such a toxic mindset to
Yeah.
have and that's why I'm in therapy. But like I said, I wouldn't have done it without the encouragement of like, no, like, you know, like I said, doesn't, Jason's not trying to be the top runner and he does things a little bit more slowly. And like, he does Tears of the Kingdom 100%, but he gets things in story order. Is it a little less optimized that way? Yeah, but he really cares about the story.
Hmm.
So that's how he has routed it. Like he wants to get the memories in story order. You know, a top runner is going to be like, well, that's silly. And, you know, he's has pulled away from the community because there are a toxic minority that are very vocal about like, well,
Yeah.
that's not actually speed running. But it's
Hmm.
like, it is because he's still trying to do the game fast. He's just doing it with his preference of story order and not doing certain glitches. So, like, why does that make him any less? I don't know if he has a time on the tiers leaderboard, but he has a time for 100% on Breath of the Wild because like he was doing that way before. Not the fastest time, but like he's gone on to do glitchless routing for someone who really wanted to do it glitchless. They didn't want to mess with the inventory because like I said it can be very
I get
stressful
it.
and frustrating. But he sat down and routed a glitchless version for someone because they wanted it and he's like I'm happy to do it. It's an interesting not like this is a new challenge for me. I can't do all of my glitches, so like how do I get the stuff that I need to do to defeat things? So, but I don't think that makes it any less valid. And I think whatever is going to get more people into the community is where we need to go. And just, you know, having more people like me that are doing it more casually,
Hmm.
just because they love the learning the like it's a project, it's a personal project of mine. Is this gonna like grow my numbers and help build my fans? Probably not. But do I have a ton of fun doing it? Yeah. So like it's not a business goal, but it's a personal goal that I've tied into my business because I do it on Twitch. But
Hey.
I mean like I I like it when things are more accessible, and the more that you see people like me who are speedrunning casually, or just learning it at their own pace and tweaking things for their own needs, the more people feel like that they can also do that, which just brings more people into the community. And I want more Breath of the Wild friends, because Breath of the Wild gets a lot of flack, and I think it's a fantastic game, and I just want more people playing.
And I think it's gonna happen. I
Yeah.
genuinely do. Um, I think especially a lot of people are coming back to, like you said, back to Breath of the Wild after playing Tears. It's the sort of nostalgia is bringing people
Yeah.
back, making them remember what the game was truly about and how
Yeah.
wonderful it was. But you're right. It doesn't matter
Exactly.
how you perform the run. It matters that you're just there and
Yeah.
participating in this greater community, which is super fun.
Yeah.
Um,
And like I
so,
said, most people I've encountered have been really helpful. Like I have top runners that still come into my chat and are like helping me with strategy, and like, have you thought about doing it this way? Or like, oh, if you do this instead, like this might be more consistent. Like I've never encountered anyone negative. I've had people who've,
that's
when
wonderful.
I was learning bingo strats, who've sat in my bingo chat for like, an hour helping me learn specific things and sending me links. And I have a Discord where we have a 100% channel. It's just kind of become the speedrunning channel, where like, oh, here's this person's approach to it, and here's the link, and like, oh yeah, it's just sharing knowledge. And from my experience, like I said, most people are really helpful and are want to help. And, if you just ask like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, can someone help me? There's usually someone around that is willing to do that.
And I think that's really good to reiterate, especially for people who do want to, dip their toes into the
Yeah.
community. Like, there is always somebody willing to help. There's so many Discord communities, so many
Yeah.
Twitch communities. The forums on speedrun.com are, excellent places to
Yep.
start. Like, there's always somebody willing to help.
Yeah, absolutely. At least in my experience. And it's, yeah, I think more people should do it if they're interested.
Yeah, even if it's 100%.
Even if it's 100%. Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to do it at world record pace. And if it takes you 15 segments to do it, so what?
Yeah.
And that was a hard lesson for me to learn.
Hmm.
Like, I kind of needed that outside permission of like, that's okay to do. So this is me giving everyone their outside permission of like, if you really want to learn 100% and it takes you 24-hour segments, so do it. Because the next time you do it, maybe it only takes you 19. And then the
Yeah.
next time it takes a little bit shorter. But like, if you're having fun doing it, then like, don't let the vocal minority of like, well, it has to be the fastest ever. Like, maybe just stay out of like the rules discussion. Like, if there's having a debate about changing an aspect of the rules, maybe stay out of that discussion, because that's where I feel like it really can get contentious about like what constitutes a speedrunner, blah 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 blah. But like,
Hmm.
the outside general community is just like, however you want to do it, well, we're here to help if you have questions. So yeah, this is my permission to like, I'm giving you permission to like, just if any, and this goes not just for Breath of the Wild, but for like, if there's any game that you're just like, I've always wanted to learn the speed run. Most of the main games will have somewhere. I think I have like an A to Z near Automata speed run somewhere on my Google Drive that looked interesting to do at some point. But I don't know, maybe I'll get to it in a couple of years.
Yeah,
But like,
eventually.
eventually, maybe, I don't know. Um, but if it looks interesting, there's usually somewhere someone has done it. And if you want to make your own category, that's fun too. I mean, there's a couple of like meme categories that are just fun. And I think for I think to get on the leaderboard, you just need like 3 or 4 people to run it. So like, why
Might
not?
as well.
Might as well.
And you get to include your friends, so
Yes,
that's always fun.
exactly.
Well, that brings me into my final question for you. Talking about, your next couple of years, you have these ideas. You want to perfect this run to your standards. You want to maybe try other runs. So what does the future of speedrunning look like for you, and what do you think it looks like for this category?
Um, I think, yeah. I right now I want to get on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
That's like goal number one. Get on the leaderboard with probably all count medals. And then once I feel like I'm consistently with my movement tech where I want to be, then work on getting that hundo. That's
Yeah.
probably going to take a little bit of time and practice. So that's probably like the next year or two. Um, and then maybe after that, move on to other categories. Like I said, maybe pick up like, I don't know, maybe after all Kelton medals before I delve into hundo, do something like something again a little bit shorter, like the best ending, because that one's still been itching in the back of my mind because I gave up on that way too early. But yeah, it's just I don't foresee myself really picking up any other games right now until I feel like I've
Makes sense.
done all the categories that I want to with Breath of the Wild, because like again, I don't have the bandwidth to do everything. So I think right now Breath of the Wild is where my heart is. So that's where the speedrunning is going to stay for the most part. I know Bingo-thon sometimes will do like blind bingos where you learn the bingo for a game you haven't played. Maybe I pick something like that up
Yeah.
because that seems fun. But I think for the most part, it's going to be like the Breath of the Wild for the next couple of years until I feel like I've done all the categories that I want to a decent standard. You
Yeah,
know,
and
not
it
world
keeps you
record.
in
We're not
that
getting there.
world.
Exactly.
Well, I wanted to thank you, Katie, for talking to me.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on the internet?
Pretty much you Google Katie Shesko and you will find me. So I'm on Twitch at Katie Shesko. I'm on YouTube at Katie Shesko. If you're interested in my flute music, that's on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, wherever you like to stream your music. It's all under Katie Shesko. I make it really easy. I had to give up my name of Backseat Link in order to do that.
Oh no.
I started streaming under the name Backseat Link with my sister, who was backseating me through all the Zelda games that I didn't play growing up. But that's a whole different origin story. But everything's under Katie Shesko. So like if you like music, you can find me there. I'm on Twitch. I speedrun mostly Breath of the Wild. I'm gonna try to get back into bingos because I really want to submit a run for Bingo-thon this winter. So we're definitely bringing the bingos back, and yeah,
Bring
so
bingos back.
bring bingos back. I want more friends so that I can do Battleship bingo.
That'd be so fun.
Battleship is so much fun and it's chaotic, and I've done one and it was a hilarious time. It's in the style of Wind Waker Sploosh Kaboom.
Of
So
course.
you have to do the Sploosh Kaboom. It's so much fun, but it's a little bit more stressful. So we do mostly co-ops. But if I get more people to do bingos, then maybe we can do some battleships.
Hey, there you go. Well, thank you again. Good luck
Thank
in your
you.
future runs. And also, if you happen to be going to conventions anywhere in the near future, always keep an eye out for Katie's name on the docket there because her shows are definitely not to miss. I've been to a few myself and
Thank
they were
you.
excellent each time, so keep
Thank
an eye out.
you.
And I wanted to thank you again and happy running.
Thank you.